would like to give the floor to Magda Romanska, who is the director of the International Online Festival and the editor-in-chief of the theatertimes.com from the US. Magda, can you hear us?
Несколько секунд, Магда.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hold on for 1 second? I'm trying to figure out my slides here.
Так, сейчас
I
я
can
хочу
hear.
подготовить свои слайды.
Yes, sorry. All right. First of all, thank you,
Ну,
Batitsky Doc
прежде всего, спасибо.
and Karina for the invitation. I was invited because of the um, um, my work on the Theater Times and our work on our online digital theater festival, which we launched in 2019, so before the pandemic. And the second edition happened right after the pandemic. Can you go to the slideshow, please? So I want us to talk about today how the pandemic will accelerate and change the move towards the digital theater festivals, having to do predominantly with theater slowly reckoning with its environmental impact. So the Theater Times was launched in 2016, and the goal of the Theater Times was to create a virtual space where different theater artists and writers can collaborate and share the information about the local theater scene. So this is a little bit different to what in previous years was available. Typically was local theater portals, or if they were more of global natures, they were typically run and by the people in the West. And our objective was to create a team of editors from around the world, which would contribute and report on their local culture. So the Theater Times, this is our website. You can search it by sections and by regions. So the regions, we cover all of the countries, and we have editors in most of the countries which we cover. We cover around 90 countries. And here is our sections for each, for each type of theater and issue that the theater tackles. So one of our projects which we developed in 2019 was a Performap, which is an interactive digital map of global theater and performance festivals. The Performap is searchable by location, a festival type, and the month in which it takes place. So you can kind of see the distribution of the theater festivals around the world. We were hoping that this is going to be a tool for researchers and theater artists to see how the theater festivals work around the world, in which way they, what's the density of different theater festivals, what are the types in different countries and things like that. So we were also hoping that it will be a resource for researchers of not just theater, but urban planning and other compatible fields. So when we think about theater festivals, we don't always think about the potential impact. So there is the positive economic impact on the local culture, such as tourism, impact on the local economy, hotels, restaurants, hospitality industry, travel industry, impact on art institutions and organization, and of course, the employment of the local people. However, there is also the environmental impact of the theater festivals, such as air and car travel, of course, the carbon emission, traffic waste, and impact on local ecology. And this theater hasn't really fully grappled both on the local level, the impact of theater productions on the environmental waste that we produce, as well as the environmental impact that theater festivals produce. So for example, 2019, this is the data for the Edinburgh Festival. We had almost 4,000 shows. And this is the latest data which I found. 2010, over 48 million pounds of coal due to the carbon usage for people traveling to and from the festival. So since 2010, the festival grew from 2,500 shows to about 3,800 shows in 2019. So that's 53% growth. This means that it's most likely generating about 60,000 tons of carbon right now. So this is only one theater festival, okay? Um, and this is, the 2009 UNESCO was trying to devise a handbook of statistics, how to evaluate the environmental impact of theater festivals. And this is some of their conclusions. Many festivals seek to demonstrate the contribution that they make to local economies by using method of evaluation, cost benefit analysis, and especially economic impact assessment. Environmental and social impacts are rarely included in festival assessments and evaluations. Techniques of environmental and social analysis include triple bottom line, social accounting, social cultural impact assessment, but these have rarely been applied in practice. Festival impact assessments rarely acknowledge negative impacts such as contamination by waste or disruption of traditional lifestyles. Um, so this is continuation where approximately 36 of festival organizers believe that their festival's environmental credentials influence ticket buyers. Most still engage in practices that are likely to harm the environment. For example, approximately 61 of festival organizers in 2009 admitted that they do not use sustainable energy, while just 1/3 of festival organizers in 2008 were familiar with any environmental legislation affecting festivals. So, the big problem that we have is that there is quite a lot of theater work currently being done in order to, so-called raise awareness of the environmental issues and the climate change. And so how do we really grapple with those works? There is, the funding is there for these works to get done and to get promoted. So one of the, big project was Holocene, which consisted of 3,500-gallon tanks made of metal. This was funded by the U.S. National Endowment for the Arts, and the purpose was to raise awareness about the environmental change and the climate change. The project traveled all over the world, and of course, it was shown mostly to the liberal audiences, which are already quite aware about the climate, the issues with the climate change. It's questionable how much actual awareness did the project generated, but it did generate quite a lot of big carbon footprint due to this sheer weight and travel that is involved. So what do we do? The sponsors and grant organizations should immediately start demanding the environmental assessment of large-scale art projects, especially those which claim to promote environmental awareness. If you want to do an aesthetic project, that's fine, but don't use a pro-environmental argument to get funding for projects that have large-scale negative environmental impact. The hypocrisy embedded in this project is not helpful to the environmental cause and to the arts as a vehicle of communicating their message. The sponsors and grant organizations should also start demanding an assessment of whose awareness will be raised by the said project. Accessibility of international theater festivals, both economic and physical. So, of course, there was already mentioned that there is quite, exclusion of certain audiences, such as disabled people, or elder audiences, anybody who, not necessarily can travel to those festivals is excluded. As a result, the mainstream audience for theater festivals consists of healthy, well-to-do young people who have the means to travel, either as artists or as audiences. This applies to both the presenting organizations and audience members. Our online theater festival was launched first in 2019 as part of Theater Times. Like Theater Times, it is a service to community. We collaborated with theaters which have government funding, and they stream their shows as part of their audience outreach. This year, the timing was kind of right because the pandemic, the lockdown started in March, and we were already pre-scheduled to start our festival in April. So we started, and eventually we extended it for additional 2 weeks as we had more and more shows that wanted to be shown. This format is good because we get to promote small theater companies, which might not necessarily be as well known as the major theater companies. The internet space created more equal space in who's doing good work, who is able to thrive in this environment, is being showcased. We showed 42 shows from 16 countries. Nearly 200 people visited, and we reached over 500,000 people on social media with our post-show talks and discussions. Again, this was all done as a service to community and expanded due to the pandemic. But this is the model that we would like to cultivate and eventually, incorporate that would combine both um, commercial and service component. Um, so the future of digital theater festivals, pros, increasing both economic and physical access for audiences and theater makers, more equitable engagement model, decrease the carbon footprint and environmental impact, increase experimentation by using new transmedia model. So you have performances that are distributed across multiple platforms. The cons, of course, you sacrifice the element of liveness and social component, the intermingling, the networking, all of those things. So we can ask, like, who is excluded from that if they cannot already go. So this, social component is also a component of, who gets exposure and who gets the networking opportunities. You sacrifice the impact of the community networking on transcultural collaborations. So potential collaborations which might have taken place if people met might not happen. And you sacrifice the economic impact on local communities. Can these cons be mitigated? So this is going to be a challenge that's within the next 5 years, I think. So what should the founders and audiences do? So demanded the estimate of the festival's carbon footprint to be included in the grant applications, demand the festivals propose mitigation measures, demand the implementation of digital component that would increase global participation of both disabled and economically disadvantaged communities, consider sponsoring and funding a digital theater festival that already incorporate more inclusive and environmentally conscious model, consider sponsoring research on digital theater festivals to advance their potential and solve their challenges. This is, we some of our work we share, on Theater Times. You can visit, and this is all of the tracking. We've been tracking all of the developments in transmedia theater around the world. All of the different projects, some of them more successful, some of them less successful. I'm happy to report that projects which are successful both commercially and artistically, do get to find their audience, but that does require a little rethinking of how you do theater, and it does require a flexibility, intellectual and artistic flexibility. Then we also have a report on the COVID-19, how theaters around the world deal with a pandemic, both from the management point of view and from the artistic point of view and survival point of view. And I also want to kind of plug in those lecture series, which we do on transmedia theater and transmedia arts, which are trying to track the the theoretical developments in transmedia theater. This is it, and with special thanks to my colleagues, and I invite everybody to visit all of our platforms as we are trying to figure out the best potential model for all of these different interactions.
Спасибо большое, Магда. Да.
Much